is Mr. Bill Meehan of ESRI. Bill is the Director of Utility Solutions, responsible for the messaging, marketing, and positioning of ESRI's GIS software to the electric utility industry. He is a registered professional engineer who received his BS at Northeastern University and MS at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Bill is the author of 4 books on GIS and the electric utility business. He has published hundreds of articles and blogs. Prior to joining ESRI, Bill was the Vice President of Electric Operations of a major electric utility in the Northeast. He is most proud of taking complex concepts and making them easy to understand. Bill?
Thanks. What's the weakest finger in your hand? Come on, let me see them. The pinky, right? And what's the most popular letter in the alphabet? Anybody? Hey, that's right. So tell me this. Why is it that the original designers of the keyboard chose to put the most popular letter A in that awkward position to be struck by the baby finger? Why did they do that? Anybody? I heard somebody. Does anybody know? To slow, yeah. The original designers of the keyboard put the popular letters in easy to get to places, right? But remember, what was the original keyboard but a mechanical typewriter with all these levers, right? So as people got used to it, the letters all jammed up. So what they did is they put the popular letters in hard to get to places so they could slow the typist down. Well, we have electric keyboards, we've had them for years, and yet we still continue with that legacy process. Why do we do that? Well, is it because we don't want to change? I don't think so. It's because I think we have a blindness to things. We just don't see things anymore. We become so used to it. And there's a term for that kind of blindness, and it's called scotoma. And what it is, it's a medical term and a psychological term, but it's kind of like tunnel vision. But it really means failure to see what's before our very eyes. It's a scotoma. So when I think about the world today and how we need to transform, we need to peel away those scotomas. And I believe that all innovation and transformation occurs when we do that. So how many people here have heard the term digital transformation? Okay? So there are really 2 pieces of that. The first is you have to have the technology in place, right? But then also you have to be able to change people's behaviors. So it's kind of like that to really create innovation, technology has to be configured to change behaviors, and not just the little ways, but in dramatic ways. And I'll give you some examples. A little pop quiz. Does anybody know what this thing is? What is it? Yell it out. A Sony Walkman, right? And what was inside here was a cassette tape. And the cassette tape is analog, right? It's analog. All right. So what replaced the Sony Walkman? The Sony Discman, right? This was analog. This was digital. So let me ask you this question. When I went from the Walkman to the Discman, was that digital transformation? Everybody. Loud. There's only 2 answers. No. It was what I like to call digital transition. And because when we went from the Walkman to the Discman, even though we went from analog to digital, we didn't really change our behavior, right? You still collected, instead of collecting cassettes, you collected CDs. Remember, they're all in your glove compartment and there are boxes in your garages. So what really was digital transformation in the music industry? Somebody I think are Spotify, right? So if you want to hear a song, you don't have to go in your garage and poke through boxes of CDs to find, the 3rd cut on the Abbey Road album, right? You just said, hey, Spotify or Alexa, play this song. So that really is transformational. And when I think about the energy future today, we need to peel away that scotoma and see things that we haven't seen before. Failure to see what's before our very eyes. So kind of another pop quiz. Well, I just did that one. So here's digital transformation. But I coined this term digital transition. That means that that's what, when we went from the cassette to the CDs, it was a kind of a transitional thing. And I think in many cases, we continue to do this sort of transitional thing and call it digital transformation. So I ran electric operations for a power company, and I was the pioneer of an early GIS at a utility. And so what is this? This is a map that was produced in 1927. So what did we do? We converted that map to GIS. And guess what? I forget how to go backwards on this. Is it the lower button? They said the top button explodes something. All right. So when we converted from the old maps to the GIS maps, we just converted the maps. They looked exactly the same way, right? And people just love the old maps, so we want to make sure they look exactly the fact. You see that little rip? See that little rip over here? Maybe we should create a symbol for that rip. You know, because people are so used to it. Or maybe a coffee stain symbol. So the notion of that was kind of a digital transition. But GIS is not about maps. GIS is about discovery. Discovering how I can peel away that scotoma by seeing things in a different sort of way. That's what GIS is all about. That's what spatial technology is all about. Not only did when we converted those paper maps to digital, what did we do? People took them and they printed them out. And they stuck them on walls, just like the old maps. When in fact, it's really not about printing out, it's about maps. It's about changing the way we do business. And that's really digital transformation, changing behavior. So that's what we have to really continue to do. So, how many people have heard the term smart grid? Well, I just heard this morning, we don't even need a grid. Or maybe the grid will disappear. I just remember a situation when my granddaughter asked me a question, and she calls me Pop. She said, Pop, when did you and Nana meet for the first time? Or when did you ask for a date for the very first time? And I said, yeah, I remember calling your grandmother on a phone, in a phone booth in Harvard Square in Cambridge. And so Gloria said to me, Pop, what's a phone booth? So I think the idea is digital transformation and using things that we just sort of transition. So smart grid is really good. So I'm not in favor of smart grid because spatial technology is really involved there. So, but what happens though when we get this smart grid and all of a sudden Mother Nature comes along? I don't think Mother Nature cares that we have a smart grid. It takes it down. So as we think about the grid, the energy delivery system of the future, we can't just apply digital transition to it. We must really think outside the box. And one of the things that I like about working in the GIS business is that it's all about really new technologies, that technology can be configured to change behavior. There are two things about GIS that I really think is revolutionary. One has occurred a long time ago, and another has occurred within the last couple of years. In the last couple of years, it's called a platform. Now, in the old days, when people did GIS, it was kind of these departments, and they had all this data on files and all this kind of stuff. Today, GIS is really available to everybody through a platform. How many people here use Facebook? Yeah, right. So when you take a picture, or when my daughter takes a picture of my granddaughter doing something cute, I see that picture the second after she does it. So the idea of a GIS platform is that when you do something now, it's available to everybody who needs it now. So the idea of the transformational aspect of spatial technology are the two things. One is that it's a platform. And the other one is the more conventional part of it, which is spatial analytics, which is, again, it's not about making pretty maps. Pretty maps are great if they communicate, but it's really about discovering something. And now, with the platform technology, you can get data from literally anywhere. You know, from space, from LiDAR, we have a lot of real-time systems in the utility business. Now I can take that real-time data right now, and I can take demographic information right now, and I can take tweets right now and put it all together in a GIS right now without having to store any of that data. It all comes from web services. And I can discover something that I was not able to see before. So GIS is this whole thing of a platform plus spatial analysis, the ability to see patterns and to be able to predict. Imagine now that instead of having just the data sets that I can work with, that my whole world of data is open up to me. So I would just close by saying that GIS has the ability to provide huge understanding of the world around us so that we can attack these problems. And the idea of a scotoma is let's think differently about GIS. Let's peel away this thing so that GIS can liberate us to be able to solve the world's problems today. Thank you.